Welcome in Campo and Joe on the air, Facebook Live or podcast, wherever you find us. We love that we're here talking football and you're hanging out with us. Joe C. from XL Primetime, Coach Dave Campo. He's our head coach right here on the Superstation, and of course, the past head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But he did announce on XL Primetime earlier today that it's if you cut him open, he's bleeding teal now.
It's always the Jags.
Yeah, it was you and Dewey. You and Dewey. Now, you got to tell the story real quick because we're going to get it rolling, talk a little bit about practice and whatnot. But you were doing was it a little Dallas?
Well, yeah, there's a Cowboy podcast.
Right.
The guy does a great job. He's out of Tampa.
Right.
So I've been on it a few times.
Uh-huh.
And we were talking, and this one was, we're right in the middle of it, and I'm talking about something. They asked me something about the Jags, and I said we, and they went, "Oh, it's we now down there in Jacksonville." And I said, "Yeah, listen. I've got a lot of history with the Cowboys.
Yep.
I wish them well, but I'm a Jaguar."
I love it. All right, on that, let's get into some Jag talk because we've seen a couple of weeks of practice. They went through 2 weeks ago without having any pads, got pads on this past week, came through a little scrimmage, if you want to call it that, inside the bank, and then they came back out Sunday and Monday, and they hit yesterday, got another practice tomorrow. But I figured you and I would drill down on what we've seen so far and then obviously start to look ahead because they play a game Saturday afternoon in Dallas against the Cowboys. So we got to look at the depth chart, all that kind of stuff. But it's all Duval, Jacksonville Jaguar talk right here. Now, we'll try and work a few other things if they're big, but mainly this. All right, so let's just start out with like that 30,000-foot view of what you've seen last week when we last got together into this week, now that the pads have come on.
Well, I think, first of all, I saw the practice kick up a little bit when they went to the live stuff. You know, that's just natural reaction with a football team. When not every period was live, but when you announce in a meeting before practice that it's going to be live work, all of a sudden, that kicks up. So, but I think overall, they've done enough teamwork, enough thud, that kind of thing where they're getting that good action. I like the enthusiasm. This football team has a lot of confidence, it looks like, and hopefully that will continue to grow as the season goes on. But I'm really excited about this team because I think they have good enough young talent to where the enthusiasm, the energy is there. And that's what they're showing in practice to this point.
Yeah, you and I talked a little bit about this last week, and I think you agreed, but we were just basically throwing out the idea that Doug Peterson is putting veterans with a ton of talent or experience, and mixing them in with newbies, with young guys. He's not afraid to do that. They're running out maybe first-string sets, but you're seeing a Kevin Austin have a role in there, a Seth Williams, and Elijah Cook. Some of these receivers have a role there. The same thing you could say on the defensive side. I love it because I think he's telling everybody on this roster, right now it's 90 guys, but when they get down to 53, they're going to be counting on all 53.
Yeah, and really when you say, you've got the veterans in there, but they're young veterans. It's not, the Brandon Scherf is really the only guy that I see out there that you would say, is a little long in the tooth.
Right.
The rest of the guys are young veterans that have found a spot here and are excited to be here. Guys with a little bit of a chip on their shoulders. Guys that, they said that Christian Kirk was paid too much and Zay Jones just was a guy. And, some of these guys that have really kind of shown out, and a lot of it is because, they have something to prove. And so you add that with the energy of the young guys, the Bigsbys and, guys like that, the Ciscos and some of these young players, the Tyson Campbells. That's when you have a chance to be a good football team. And I think they've got a pretty good mixture of that. And I really think they did an excellent job. Time will tell, but I think they did an excellent job this year in the draft with bringing in some back-end talent that makes the football team complete, not just the top 22.
It's funny because we're looking at this depth chart. And, when you get to game day, you may not see all these guys out there. But to your point, They want a deep football team that's talented enough that they can survive injury and that they can have wrinkle guys that can step in and make plays. Now, this comes in the form of a third or fourth string running back, a fifth or a sixth guy in the receiver room, that tight end that they need to find out about. Can he block? Can he catch? And then you can go to the other side and we can come up with the same examples as well. But I do think, Coach, in a short amount of time, we've seen Garrett Prince flash. We've seen a few other guys, like we mentioned in the receiver room, step up. We've seen guys on the defensive side of the football really try and earn a spot or at least earn the coach's attention. Antonio Johnson does look like he's going to be a pretty good player.
Right.
I mean, so hit on some of those that you know, because that's the depth you're talking about.
Well, I think the receiver room is probably the one that sticks out more than anything else.
Yeah.
You know, you have to have, it's kind of like a coaching staff. You know, a coaching staff, you can have some guys that are rah-rah and a lot of energy, and then you have the guys that are a little bit more, you know, Press Taylor, for example, is calm, cool, and collected.
Measured, yeah.
You know, you can't have the same, you know, everybody firing on all cylinders all the time. Well, it's the same thing when you put a receiver core out there. You've got to have some guys that have a little different skill set. They're not all the same. So this team has put together a pretty good group. When you've got Ingram as a tight end that can really get after it.
Yeah.
You got Strange that's a guy that's kind of an either-or kind of tight end. And then you got Farrell, who's a little bit more of an inline blocking tight end. So, you know, if you can do that in every position, that's great. When you look at the receiver core, they've got some guys that you would say are kind of big receivers.
Right.
And then you got Christian Kirk, who is a kind of a scat back, kind of a inside receiver. Well, now all of a sudden you look at Austin and Cooks and Harris and who else?
Seth Williams is a decent sized guy.
Those are all guys that are 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah.
You know, hopefully one of those guys has a chance to make it, because there you got your big receiver. When you get inside the red zone, those kind of guys have a chance to be big guys. They don't have to go down the field. They're playing width, and all you have to do is get the ball up in the air on some of the DBs, and you got a chance to make a play.
And I'll admit that I feel like I've got to wedge one of these guys into that bottom roster spot. Like, I didn't think I was going to have to do that. I thought there were going to be enough good guys like maybe Kevin Austin or Tim Jones, who's been here before, would have a chance maybe to nail down that sixth spot. I'm going to put Jamal Agnew in the fifth position.
Right.
Or fifth wide receiver. I'm going to obviously include him in special teams.
Right.
But I didn't think, like, Elijah Cooks and Jacob Harris are 83 and 84. Those are two big boys.
Big guys, right.
And I, you know, you and I were talking about this on XL Primetime. Doug Peterson mentioned it in his presser. He makes it sound to me like he's looking for a strong, I can win a 50-50 ball against a defender with some size.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's what that big guy can do. And I think Cooks, for example, and I think Austin's done a beautiful job in camp, but Cooks, I think, has made what you would say is a difficult catch in almost every practice, you know, and so what those young guys have to do is they have to show up. They don't have as much time now with the collective bargaining agreement on how much time they have in the one less preseason game. Can't be in a building more than a certain amount of hours and all those kind of things. A guy's got to kind of show up or else he's going to get lost and not have a chance to make it. And I think those receivers have done that.
Now, I'm looking at one piece of this depth chart, and I want to know what you think about it, because, you know, you're a guy who, as a head coach, you were evaluating all the time. But when you see Luke Farrell as your starting tight end, and then you have Brenton Strange next to him, now these are not the move tight ends. These are the guys that are going to be inline blockers. I mean, is that saying anything to you other than Farrell was here a year ago, or don't make too much of this? What do you see when you – what should we see when we see that?
Well, I think that he probably, you know, and I've watched Strange a little bit blocking. He can block.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
He's a big guy. He's pretty good, but, you know, he is Farrell's been in the scheme. He's been here.
Okay.
And I think that's the way you start out. I've always felt like if you got a veteran that's been there and has a skill set that you're looking for, he should be number one on the chart right from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's up to those young puppies to, you know, show something and get out there and get it going.
Right.
But I think that they've got it split up, you know, with the Ingram Prince and the Farrell Strange. Those are the guys that have a chance to be factors in this thing, a different kind of a style.
And that may end up being the tight end room. Josh Peterson, with apologies to the head coach.
Right.
He may be a guy, I'm thinking he might be eligible for the practice squad, but he's a guy that's been given a chance. It's a good story.
Right.
It's all that stuff. Sammis Reyes has actually looked pretty good at times.
Well, he's going to be an MAA or what is it? EAW, whatever the wrestling thing is.
AEW.
AEW. That's where he's going right after he finishes playing football. But, he's been banged up a little bit, so he's not getting that same opportunity. And that's the one thing you have to do is you have to, you can't be on the bench. You got to be showing something early in camp. So
the best availability or the best ability is availability. All right, so I just want to go through these real quick, and I'm just going to hit each position group and, maybe a thought at the top or a thought deeper on the depth chart. We mentioned the tight ends. We mentioned the wide receivers. Do you want to throw any more at the wide receiver position? Has Parker Washington done anything for you?
Well, I think Parker Washington is heir apparent to Christian Kirk down the road. I think he's one of those guys. He's probably a pretty good returner. I think he's in the depth chart as a returner. And I'm sure he's a pretty good special teams guy.
Right.
He's got the foot quickness and everything for the slot style receiver. And again, that's one of those guys, like when you slot them, you're slotting the nickels together. We're a little different than the outside guys. The receivers, you're slotting a little different based on the type of receiver they are and, what their skill set is. I think he's going to make the team. I think he'll be a good special teams player. From what I've seen out there, him running. And
he's back there catching punts.
Yep. And he really does a pretty good job of running routes. So, again, he's gonna be in that mix somewhere.
I saw a moment yesterday where Trevor Lawrence was coaching him up a little bit. And I've seen Trevor do this with not just the quality guys, with the guys that are deeper on the bench. He's not ignoring anyone. He wants them all to get better. That's that leadership coming out in him for sure.
Yeah, and one of the things you have to really keep in mind, Joe, which I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but when you talk about Austin and these big receivers and everything, if Parker Washington is the sixth, if he's the special teams guy out of all those guys, he's going to make the team. Now, the good thing is that you've got the practice squad that is longer now than ever I can remember.
Yeah, you can have a dozen guys.
So you have a chance to keep some guys that play in. And I think it wasn't Prince on the practice squad all last year.
And if we're being honest here, now you have two receivers that are key special teamers in Agnew and Washington.
Right. And that's good. I mean, because those backup guys have got to be able to do that.
Right.
And that's part of the deal.
I don't see a Harris or Elijah Cooks. I don't see those guys necessarily as being special teams guys.
And that's what you don't know. You don't know that until it's hard to say, okay, here's your 53 right now, because you don't know what a lot of special team stuff is done in the game. Once that game is on, you see guys flying around and everything. That's where they have a chance to make the team.
All right, so let's hit the running back room real quick, and then we got to touch on the offensive line. But I'm not wiping out anybody. We already basically have said Snoop Connor, 1 year. They spent a draft pick on him. It doesn't look like he is right now among your top four. I think we're going to have four. Do you think we'll have more than that? I think we're going to have four running backs.
I think we'll have four.
Yeah.
And, obviously one of them will probably not be active in the game.
Right.
But, again, Snoop is eligible for the practice squad, and you never know what's going to happen with, an injury here or an injury there, and all of a sudden somebody's in the mix. So that's a stocked room, in my opinion.
Yeah. Kadri Ollison is a big guy.
Yeah.
And he's made a couple of plays out there, so he's the furthest guy on the depth chart.
Right.
But, I've been hyping Dearness Johnson, but Jermichael Hasty has proven he's in the system, like you said. Tank Bigsby has been kind of lighting people's fire. He's got a lot of people excited in ETN. So, Dearness is probably going to be the fourth guy.
Yeah, here's what I say about that. I spoke with the running back coach, is I know very well.
Yeah, Bernie Parmalee.
And he said, the first thing he said to me, I said, hey, you got a pretty good looking group there. And he goes, speed. And so,
Yahtzee.
So, that's where Snoop Connor is not quite there.
Right.
With that group. Every one of those other guys have got some speed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you're banking on.
Yeah, and that's what they want. And I'm telling you, and you know this, we're telling them this, they probably know it too. I called Doug Peterson's play sheet, a Waffle House menu, scattered, smothered, and covered, because he will stress defenses, and he loves the idea that he has all these pieces. And you are correct. They're going to have to work through injury. They're going to have guys ready to step up.
Right.
Some are going to come up from the practice squad.
Yep.
Snoop may not have seen his last day in a Jaguar uniform making play. You never know.
That's the great thing about that practice squad.
All right, so offensive line, there's a bunch of guys here. What has jumped out for you? We'll try and hit a couple of them.
Well, first of all, I think Walker Little has done everything that he can do to show that he can play left tackle.
Yeah.
And that's based on last year's play and what he's shown in training camp. The guy's an athlete. He's big. He's playing every position on the offensive line except center. He's worked at those positions. There is a chance that when Cam Robinson comes back that he may go to tackle, from tackle to guard.
Yeah.
But, he's shown what he can do. I'm a little concerned with the other tackle, Harrison, the rookie.
Anton Harrison.
Not because of anything necessarily he's done when he's been in there,
right?
But he's missed some practice time. Yeah. And that makes me nervous, going into the season. But I really think that he's definitely talented enough.
He's big,
physical enough. He's athletic. His feet are good. All those things, and every once in a while you see him do a rookie thing. He'll overset or something. Sure. That makes you a little nervous.
Right.
But now the Hance kid that's in there for Shatley.
Yeah, Blake Hance.
Hance has looked pretty good. He's a guy that's been around. He's been in about 5 different clubs, I think.
By the way, Coach, I couldn't help but wonder when I saw that he went to Northwestern. I wonder if he got hazed back in the day.
I'm sure he did. The way it sounds, but probably made him a little tougher. I don't know,
maybe. But 3 years in the league, then with Cleveland, I think most recently.
Cleveland. The quarterback called him out in the second playoff game about how he played in the fourth quarter of the game when the game was on the line. So I like him. I think they've got a couple of good-looking young guys. This Hodges kid, I really like him. I think he's one that they want to keep around.
Baker County, Cooper Hodges.
He's tough. He's got a little mean streak to him, which I like. And, he's a rookie. But I like that. I think the offensive line is going to be all right. And it's the right tackle it's good that he's got Scherf right next to him who can kind of help him with the mental part of the game, because I think physically he's going to be fine.
Teach him how to be a pro.
Right.
Let him be that next long-term guy, which is what Brandon Scherf was. Yep. And he is sitting right behind him. You've got Blake Hance at the left guard position. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with Tyler Shatley. Yeah. I want to say I heard Jeff Lageman say that don't expect to see Tyler Shatley until the regular season.
Yeah, and I think he'll be fine. I mean, you have to control. He had an AFib issue. You just have to control it.
Right, and with
that. Medication, I got it.
Yeah.
So you control it with medication, you don't have it.
Let me ask you something, because you know this and we don't. Isn't that kind of scary for a young person to find that out?
Well, it can be scary, anything that you're talking about the heart.
Yeah.
But, with the medications they have today, once you don't have the AFib can cause the possibility of a blood clot somewhere along the line around the heart. But as long as you're taking the right medication and it doesn't happen very often, you're in good shape. So, I mean, I think there's a concern, obviously, but I don't think it's one that's a congenital problem with the heart muscle itself. It's electrical problem. So, hopefully he'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you're hoping for more than anything else. All right, so let's get to the other side. We'll go to the defensive side. We know that there's some battles. real quick before we jump over, I did see like the Tank Bigsby run. Cam Robinson was the sealer on the left side. He was playing tackle. Right. We've seen Walker Little go inside. We haven't seen it a ton, but we definitely have still seen some of that cross training. And we've also seen Cam go inside a couple of times.
Yep.
Like you said, Walker has held down that tackle position, but has anything else changed in your mind about Cam and what they will do once he comes back?
No, I in my mind, I think he will come in and they'll put the best 5 guys on the offensive line. So if that's the case, I don't think Cam's a guard. He's going to be the left tackle.
Yeah.
And Walker Little will move inside.
Yeah.
That's what I think is going to happen, regardless of how he's playing.
Okay.
Because I really think that you want the best 5 guys on the field.
That is interesting. And as big as Walker Little is, Cam's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
He's a huge human being.
Yep.
But we did have someone text us earlier, Coach, and this is just their prediction. Future Jag O-line, right tackle, Anton Harrison, Cooper Hodges, right guard, Luke Fortner holding down the center position, Walker Little holding down the left tackle position, and they put Ben Barch back in there.
Yeah.
And you hope he's going to be healthy.
That's the case.
Yeah.
Because Ben Barch was going to be the starting left guard last year until he got hurt.
Exactly.
So, he's a big guy that's pretty athletic, but he's really physical. Hopefully he comes back from the injury, and that's your offensive line.
All right, so defensive side. We'll hit the depth chart in just a second, but let's just do one general question. And it's so funny. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Let me open up the football Bible. Let me open up the football Bible, and it says somewhere in the genesis of the football Bible that when training camp starts, defense is going to be ahead of offense.
Right.
We've heard that a bunch.
Right.
Well, this is one of the best offenses, I believe, in the National Football League.
Right.
This defense is not keeping up with this offense.
It hasn't.
So should you worry?
Well, I'm a little worried. I mean, I think I made a comment the other day is that you're going to see a lot of blitzing from this ball club.
Yeah.
Which is acronym or synonym. I'm not real good with some of those words.
With the NIMS?
It's going to take they're going to do that not just because they can't get a pass rush, but they're going to be more aggressive.
They're going to manufacture a few things.
They're going to be more aggressive.
Yeah.
And I really think they made a jump in my mind when they were told that it was going to be live that day.
Mm-hmm.
And, what coaches do is, what you want to see is you want to see the offense good one day, then the defense good the next day.
Back and forth.
It's your team. Okay. Well, I guarantee you, if one side is winning, the other coaches are working their guys over in the meetings, talking about what has to happen. And when you say live, I don't know about those offensive guys. I'm a little, I'm so on the offensive coaches in general, and I'm so on the offensive players in general. But I know one thing: when a defense hears live, that's when they come on.
Right.
And the energy level I thought was better yesterday than it's been the whole camp. And I don't think the offense won the day.
Right.
I really think the defense probably won the day yesterday.
That's good because you want. And I've seen a few situations where there have been some busts on the offensive line. Defenders have gotten through there very quickly. I saw when they were live, the ball on the ground more than I expected it.
Now that's
not to my liking.
That's a concern.
Yeah.
They're working on that, I promise you. You can't turn the ball over.
No. And this is what practice is for.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't win turning the ball over.
No.
Period. If you turn the ball over more than the other team does, you got a pretty good chance of losing.
Yeah, and I channeled my inner Tom Coughlin, the callous disregard for the football.
Yeah.
And it would drive him crazy, and with good reason.
Yep.
Like you said, you cannot earn the chance to hold the football and then cough it up and give a short field to the other team. Yeah. And your defense is already maybe wobbling just a little bit. That's just going to make it that much worse.
I think when I think as a coach, you look at what's going to happen in a ball game, and the defenses are so good and so fast that there's going to be some turnovers in the passing game.
Right.
It's just, they're so athletic in the back ends and the pressure on the quarterback. But there's no reason a back should ever fumble the ball.
Yeah. And
there's no reason. That you don't expect.
Right.
And if you're turning the ball over in the run game, that's even bigger a factor than if you turn the ball over in the pass.
By the way, it was a little bit of a concern with ETN last year.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They're obviously trying to combo up, trying to get more guys that are going to tote the football. But you got to protect it.
So, again, they're working on that. I can remember Leon or somebody was telling me, or maybe it was Tom McManus or somebody was telling me that Tom had Maurice Drew. No, it wasn't Tom. It was Del Rio. It was Maurice Drew. Had him carrying the football around at lunch.
Oh yeah, because you can't cough it up.
Yeah, and so that's something that you don't count on fumbles.
Yeah.
You don't count on that.
And go back to Tom Coughlin with Tiki Barber. Same kind of deal, making sure that he protected the football. Yeah. And you can't. I know that's your dog. Whenever I
that's
say
my
Tiki
dog, Tiki Barber.
Who are you talking about? Oh, but that's the same thing. All right, so over to the defensive side. Just a few guys that flashed for you. I mentioned to you Tyler Lacey. We both agreed that he's been able to make a couple of more plays. Antonio Johnson, I keep bringing him up, so do you.
Yep.
Maybe a couple of guys on the defensive side that you like.
First of all, I like Lacey. And my comment the other day was Hodges and Lacey, you don't want to leave the room.
Yeah.
Because they're both big guys, and it's hard to find the big guys.
Right.
And so you don't want them to get too far. I think they've got pretty good ability. So Antonio Johnson looks like he belongs out there. He's got speed. It looks like better than what his time was. He's athletic, and he will hit you. I've seen him hit. So I know that's one of his deals. That's a real plus for sure. And then when you look at some of the younger guys in the secondary, Monteric Brown, I think, has shown up in this camp. I think he's probably right now the third corner. I think I would have said Claybrook's, but with some of the problems, and with Claybrook's size, Monteric is a good size defensive back, and will be a factor, I think.
And he was in there with Tyson Campbell in concussion protocol, so that's also a good tip of the cap to him. And let's just mention this while you mentioned Chris Claybrooks. You got Tyson Campbell, Monteric Brown, Eric Hallett on one side. Right. On the other side, you got Darius Williams. Then you have Tavon Campbell, and then Chris Claybrooks. Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, Tavon Campbell has been in there in the second unit the whole time, and he's not a bad-looking kid. So, and he's probably got the inside track on that because of size and some of those kind of things. I would have thought that they would have tried Claybrooks at nickel, but they just don't. They don't care for him that much.
No, and I don't know whether there's past history there. I don't believe this coaching staff did it, but they tried him in a bunch of different spots out of necessity. Yeah, going back to the previous coaching staff. All right, so let's wrap up. Gregory Jr.'s look good. We mentioned Antonio Johnson. So between the nickel and the dime, it does look like there's some guys that can step in. Yeah. To me, I think Gregory Jr.'s done well. I think he'll push Trey Herndon. But again, I think he's better suited for man coverage than Herndon is. Okay. So, some of the younger guys trying to get in there with all the zone stuff, that's what you saw in Lloyd last year. Pass-offs and all that stuff. Right. I think Herndon's going to be ahead of that if they're going to be a zone team, which I believe they're going to be more than a man team. It'll probably be Herndon, but I think Gregory Jr.'s held his own in there. Yeah, that's good. And then you hear somebody that you don't really see too much of, the special team, talking about Brenny, as a safety. Yeah. If he's a great special teams guy, maybe he supplants one of those guys back there. And that's really what it boils down to is that, and you've seen these guys because this is his department. So Latavius Brenny is a guy to keep your eye on if you hear him say it. Yeah. That's for sure. All right, so last thought. This team against the Cowboys, how many? A couple series is what's planned. Yes. What will we get out of that? Well, first of all, everybody was saying they wouldn't play the first unit, and I thought they would because to me, in the old system with 4 preseason games, the first game you don't play any of the veterans. The second game you play them a series or 2. Third game you play them for a half or maybe into the third quarter, and then the fourth game you don't play them. Well, take away the first game,
the first game in a 3 series is the second game
They gotta play.
in a 4 situation. So I could see them playing a couple of series.
Okay.
And there may be a few guys that stay in there after Trevor leaves, So I think you're going to see a little bit there. Now, what I've heard, that the Cowboys are not going to play Prescott.
Okay.
So, I don't know how many of their first-line guys are going to play.
Mm-hmm.
But, they've got a pretty good group of players there, even in the backups. So I think you'll get a good look at our younger guys,
Right.
and even some of our first-line guys, because I think they have a pretty good roster all the way through.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Listen, we're going to keep it rolling. Campo and Joe back in full force. We'll be able to react to all these exhibition games, preseason games, and then we'll start to cut this roster down to 53. Joe C., noon to 3 weekdays on XL Primetime, and our man, Coach Dave Campo. Thanks for hanging out with us.